So you're thinking about making the move from Washington to Arizona, but not sure if it's the right move for you yet? That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. After watching this video, you're going to know if moving from Washington to Arizona is the move for you. And we're going to cover the top 5 reasons why Washingtonians are packing up, hitting down I-5, and heading to Arizona and making that their new home. But before we get into the video, how about a huge round of applause for the Arizona real estate runner-up Salesman of the Year. And that honor goes to Governor Jay Inslee of Washington. Thank you, Jay. You're doing a great job. Keep up the good work. But as a great job as Jay's doing, he was just edged out by his friend, Governor Gavin Newsom of California. You want to see a video on that? Luckily, I've made one talking about Californians moving to Arizona, and you can find that video right here. All right, real quick, I want to recap on a recent article that came out that showed the top 5 states that are sending residents to Arizona. And those 5 states in order are number 5, Colorado, number 4, Illinois, number 3, Texas, and number 2, Washington, and number 1, California. According to U.S. Census data, Washington has the highest number of residents thinking about making a move from their state in the next year. And that number accounts for nearly 171,000 residents. Now, of that 171,000 people polled on that, a lot of those are staying in state. 37% of those are people thinking about moving out of Seattle to the surrounding areas. But the other 63% is people that are thinking about fully jumping, making the move out of the state of Washington. And where's the number 1 place where Washingtonians are choosing to call their new home? You guessed it right here in Maricopa County, Phoenix, Arizona. But before we talk about all the reasons why people are thinking about and making the move out of Washington to Arizona, I want to show the state a little love. First off, I've only been to Washington one time in my life, and I have to say it is one of the most beautiful places, not only in the United States, but the entire world, in my opinion. Washington's beautiful from coast to the mountains to lakes everywhere, greenery. Washington is really easy on the eyes, and it's an absolutely beautiful place to live. And the state is also home to Seattle, which is one of the best cities in the country, in my opinion. From afar, it's beautiful. I know the city has its own issues, which we'll talk about a little bit in this video, but all around, I see Seattle as a culture, this beautiful city. It's got water on one side, mountains on the other, tons of things to do, restaurants to eat. Seattle, from afar, appears to be one of the best cities in the entire United States. And last but not least, the people of Washington are awesome. I've done business with a ton of people who are buying second homes, investment properties, and moved here to Arizona from Washington. And I must say, they are absolutely the best people. I love meeting them and talking to them. They're just all around great people. If you don't have any friends from Washington, I really urge you to get some because they are awesome people. On top of that, a couple of my mentors in real estate are from the state of Washington. There seems to be a pop in real estate scene, and I've learned a lot from people out of that region. Now that we've shared a little love with the state of Washington, let's talk about the top 5 reasons why people are making the move out of the state. Number 5 on the list, it's not a landlord-friendly state. I can't tell you the amount of people I've worked with from the state of Washington, investors and homeowners, that just say they're tired of the government telling them what to do with their property. And this started with COVID, but a lot of folks had the rent moratorium where they couldn't collect rent from folks, but the government wasn't allowing them to evict those people. So it kind of put landlords and property owners who did the responsible thing. Let's face it, they saved their hard-earned money and put it into a property. Next thing you know, you got the government telling them they can't collect rent or do anything really about it, but they still have to pay the mortgage. Now, these investments can turn into a bit of a nightmare if you've ever had a property that you can't rent out, but you're still on the hook for the mortgage, any repairs, expenses. And because of that, I've had so many people reach out and want a 1031 exchange, buy property here in Arizona that were previously investments in Washington. Now let's talk about Arizona in contrast. We are what's called a non-judiciary state, where if we have a problem with a tenant that's not paying rents or it just becomes a big problem, our process is a lot quicker and smoother and less costly and efficient. And really, in my opinion, that creates for a healthier relationship between landlords and their residents, knowing that the landlord has equal power. You know, if there's a problem going on, they can do something about it, and it's not going to kill the landlord to have to do something. So That's reason number 5 on the list, that Arizona, as of today, is a very landlord-friendly state. Now let's talk about number 4 on the list, the homeless problem. Now, this is a touchy subject. I get it. Nobody wants to see anybody or humankind living on the streets, and it's a big problem we need to figure out as a country. I don't have the answer to it. Our politicians don't seem to either. But as far as city by city, Seattle's incredibly high on the list, just behind the Bay Area in California and Los Angeles. Seattle's number 3 as far as the number of people living on the streets for big cities, and that's over 13,000 people. And I think that can be said for cities that are very expensive, and it has something to do with politics, which we'll talk about this later, but it seems like a lot of the longtime Democratic-held cities are the ones that experience the largest homeless problem. I don't know the reason for that, but it seems like costs go up, taxes go up, and somebody has a hard time, maybe they have a problem with a job, or, they're going through a bit of a mental breakdown or an addiction to a substance. And let's face it, they're good people, but anybody can end up on the street when they go through a rough patch, and things are very, very expensive in that city. It doesn't take a lot till somebody ends up living in their car, and then the next thing you know, that gets taken and they're living on the street. Again, it's an unfortunate problem. And I'm not saying Arizona's perfect in this regard. We've seen our costs go up, and there's definitely more homeless people living on the streets here in Phoenix. I know with our weather, it probably keeps that number down, because let's face it, when it's 120 in the summers and it only gets down to 90 at night, it's a very tough place to be homeless. But it's definitely not as bad from seeing in the Washington area, especially in Seattle, all the homelessness. And hope we can figure this out as a country. Our politicians and people come together, find a solution to the problem. But right now, that's one of the people that people are moving out of the state of Washington to states like Arizona. The number 3 reason people are moving out of the state of Washington and Arizona, the cost of living is absolutely astronomical. It's out of this world. Between the cost of housing and the cost of goods going up just to go out to eat or get groceries and utilities, right now, Seattle ranks as the number 9 city in the entire country as the most expensive place to live, just behind number 8, Austin, and just in front of number 10 on that list, San Diego, California. Now, to hear that Seattle's ahead of San Diego, California, when it comes to cost of living is absolutely crazy. And, let's face it, it's continued to go up. The housing market has been going up, and it's really hard for people, even just regular people, to afford a property, to buy a place to live in expensive markets like that. Now, Phoenix has gone up a ton in recent years because of the number of people we have moving here. There's less goods to go around, and that drives to inflation. Phoenix has been hit pretty hard with that as well. But right now, we're not even in the top 15 on that list. So while we're catching up to the price of Seattle, there's still a pretty good gap there that we would have to make up. And that's one of the top reasons people are leaving Seattle, packing up their van and heading down I-5 to states like Arizona. Now, we're getting down that list, number 2 on the list, and we preluded to this, but the politics, believe it or not, the state of Washington has the longest running streak of Democratic governors. It's been over 43 years since a Republican's been in office. Now, I don't care whether you're Republican or Democrat. I don't think it's healthy to have one party in control of a state for over 43 years. It starts to serve special interest, and obviously there's a breakdown in things, and I think this is probably the number 2 reason on the list while people are packing up and heading out of Washington, is just because the politics are going way far left. It was ranked as the number 13 state in the entire country that leans left. So I personally like it to be somewhere in the middle. I tend to lean conservative, but I think it's healthy to have a challenge from the other political side. Again, if you're on the left or right, it doesn't matter. You want to have politicians held accountable. And right now, Washington just doesn't have that. You're going to see more progressive policies, more expenses, in my opinion. And that's the number 2 reason why people are heading down I-5 to Arizona. And Arizona's got its own issues. We don't know what's going on with our politics. Traditionally, Arizona's leaned a little bit to the right, but there has been more of a balance of power. We've seen that with the last couple of elections that have actually gone the Democrats' way. So there is a balance of power in Arizona. I personally hope that trend doesn't continue, but as we have more and more people move here, Phoenix has had the highest population migration 3 out of the last 4 years in the entire country. And it seems like people from some states are bringing their politics with them and actually voting for the policies that had them wanting to leave their own state. So I don't really hope that continues, but let's face it, politics is one of the reasons people are moving out of Washington. And number 1 on the list today, rain, rain, go away, come back another day. No surprise here. It's the weather in the cloudiness in Washington area, in so much contrast to Arizona, which is one of the sunniest places in the country. Don't get me wrong, I yearn, especially in the summer. Here we are at the end of August, early September, where I would love a 75-degree day with blue skies and some mountains in the background. We just haven't seen that of recent time, but you get that out of the way, and we have beautiful weather for 9 months here in Arizona, where really in Washington, it's one of the cloudiest places in the entire country, only ranking behind Anchorage, Alaska, as far as cities that have the most dreary days. If you live in the Seattle area, you can expect 226 cloudy days or overcast days over the year. Add to that another 82 days that are partially cloudy, and that's really most of the year. Compare that to Phoenix, where 85% of the days are sunny year-round. Now I can already hear it. Some people are gonna say, hey, in Phoenix, you guys get to 110, 115 sometimes. You guys have long summers. Yeah, I get it, but I say don't be a baby. Do what we did. Get yourself a nice backyard, a Traeger smoker with some misters, lots of umbrellas, in the pool. You'll be just fine. That's what Arizona outside summer living's all about. And then you get through the summer, get yourself a nice tan, and then you go into the fall, where the rest of the year we can expect beautiful weather, sunny skies through the holidays and spring and until the next summer. It just does something for you. It puts you in a great mood when you see blue skies, sunny skies with some mountains in the background. And that is the number 1 reason people are moving from Washington to Arizona. Now, if you like this video and decided, hey, I think I'm ready to make the jump to Arizona, but not sure how to do it, all of my contact info is in the description below. If you're looking to work with a savvy agent for a second home, an investment property, or even making a move to the Arizona, look me up. I'd love to talk real estate with you. Or if maybe you're still on the fence because you're like, hey, I've heard great things about Arizona, but what's going on with their water situation? Luckily, I've made a video on that, and you can find that right here.